Earth, about 170,000 years ago, was a wild, harsh world, completely devoid of civilization's footprint. Amidst the dawn of the desolate African savanna, the ancestors of humanity woke up and began a grueling day of survival. Those upright walking creatures looked around, facing fierce beasts and natural disasters, without a single piece of cloth covering their bodies. In that era, the concept of pants, shirts, or dresses was something completely non-existent in their minds. However, look at today's modern world, where billions of people wake up every morning and the very first thing they do is put on clothes. We drape ourselves in neat suits, gorgeous dresses, or even simple loungewear. Clothing has become so deeply ingrained in human existence that the law will intervene if someone appears too naked. The global legal system is solidly built around an immutable rule: please wear something on your body. Many might wonder when this turning point began and why humanity chose to go against the laws of nature. Look closely. Almost every other animal on this planet has spent millions of years without ever needing clothing. Wild wolf packs, loyal dogs, or colorful birds live freely with their innate appearances. Even the elephant, a symbol of superior intelligence and wisdom in the natural world, has never needed a jacket. The short answer from scientists is that we cannot know exactly every absolute timeline of this history. However, the long answer opens up an incredibly thrilling, bizarre journey filled with unbelievable historical twists. That journey leads us to an unexpected piece of biological evidence: the mysterious evolution of lice. Though it sounds a bit gross, the story of this parasite is one of the most spectacular scientific investigations. To understand the root cause, we must travel back to the time when humanity faced a major evolutionary puzzle: the naked ape. There is a biological fact that few notice. Humans are the only large mammals that are almost entirely hairless. Observe other primates like chimpanzees or gorillas. Their bodies are always covered in a thick layer of fur. From polar bears and African lions to herds of wild horses, all possess perfect natural fur coats. Meanwhile, humans stand amidst diverse biology with smooth, fragile, and vulnerable skin. Many scientific hypotheses have been proposed, the most prominent being the theory of body temperature regulation. When our ancestors left dense forests to venture into vast grasslands, they had to run to hunt prey. Running continuously under the scorching equatorial sun made a body full of thick fur a deadly burden. Skyrocketing body temperatures and overloaded heart rates would cause ancient hunters to collapse before catching their prey. To survive, human genetics adapted by gradually shedding fur and developing a state-of-the-art weapon: sweat glands. With about 2 to 4 million sweat glands under the skin, humans are the finest heat-dissipating machines on the planet. This superior sweating ability makes us endure longer than any predator during sweltering summer days. However, this magnificent summer advantage turned into a terrifying disaster when the freezing winter arrived. When temperatures dropped below freezing, bare skin could not protect humans from the biting, icy winds. That was when the primitive ideas of clothing were born, even if the initial reason wasn't entirely about the cold. Conventional wisdom assumes that when humans migrated out of Africa to colder lands, they simply draped animal skins over themselves. A very logical story, simple enough that even a child could envision it coherently. However, as archaeologists delved deeper into the timelines, that historical narrative began to reveal massive cracks. Modern genetic evidence indicates that humans started wearing clothes around 100,000 to 170,000 years ago. Meanwhile, the great migrations of modern humans out of the African continent only truly surged 70,000 years ago. So why did clothing appear tens of thousands of years before humans set foot in cold climates? There must have been another driving force, a social factor, tied to the psychological and behavioral nature of humanity. To decode this mystery, researchers at the University of Florida sought answers from an incredibly tiny creature. They proceeded to map the evolutionary history of human lice across different eras. Medicine and biology divide human lice into two completely distinct types: head lice and body lice. Head lice cling to hair strands, while body lice choose to nest in the crevices and seams of clothing. These two populations underwent an evolutionary divergence, splitting into two species with unique biological traits. Body lice cannot survive on bare skin. They absolutely require layers of fabric to hide and reproduce. Therefore, the moment body lice separated from head lice is exactly when humans began wearing clothes consistently. Genetic analysis results show this divergence occurred between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago, perfectly matching the hypothesis. It is astounding that a universally hated parasite is the keeper of humanity's earliest fashion memories. They were there, silently adapting, migrating along with animal skins, and recording the progress of civilization. So if not for the cold weather, what was the purpose of the first clothes ever worn? The first hypothesis points to the most basic physical protection for the body against environmental impacts. The hairless human skin is highly vulnerable to harsh sunlight, insect bites, and sharp thorns. When navigating through sharp bushes to hunt, an animal skin wrapped around the waist acts as an effective shield. The extreme daytime temperatures of the desert are always waiting to scorch the most sensitive skin structures. It helps minimize scratches, prevents infections, and keeps the prehistoric human body in a safe state. The second hypothesis, which is also the most fascinating, is the human need to broadcast social messages. Deep within our subconscious, humans are highly social creatures, constantly yearning to assert status and power. We continuously send out signals about who we are, which tribe we belong to, and our strength within the community. Before clothing existed, our ancestors knew how to use red ochre pigment to paint on their skin 200,000 years ago. The act of body decoration, to create visual impact, actually appeared long before the first fabric strands were made. Transitioning from painting skin to wearing a specific animal hide was a massive leap in cognitive thinking. A skin from a fierce predator doesn't just keep one warm. It is a powerful declaration of the hunter's bravery. That was the very first brick laying the foundation for humanity's primitive fashion industry. Around the flickering fire, members of the ancient tribe probably began fighting over the most beautiful animal skins. For tens of thousands of years afterward, clothing remained in a rudimentary form, just pieces of hide hastily tied with animal sinew. They were bulky, crude, and purely functional, lacking any refinement or tailored fit to body measurements. Things only truly changed around 50,000 years ago, when a magnificent invention appeared: the sewing needle. Archaeologists have found exquisitely pierced bone needles inside ancient caves. The oldest known sewing needle was discovered in the Denisova cave in Siberia, crafted from the bone of a large bird. The needle's tip was sharpened, and the tail was drilled with a tiny hole perfectly sized for threading animal sinew or plant fibers. This was not just an ordinary survival tool, it was a testament to a quantum leap in engineering mindset. Humans no longer accepted draping themselves in rough skins. They began cutting, measuring, and sewing. Fitted, body-hugging, and wind-proof garments were born, helping to maximize heat retention for the wearer. In the freezing lands of Siberia, without these carefully tailored clothes, death by cold was an absolute certainty. Not only modern humans, but recent studies show that Neanderthals were also masters at processing animal hides. They knew how to use stone tools to scrape off excess meat, soften the skin, and craft clothing long before they met us. The thick bones and robust bodies of Neanderthals show they battled harsh climates with both biology and technology. The coincidence of inventing clothing across different human species raises a profound philosophical question. Could wearing clothes be an inevitable outcome for any intelligent creature when facing nature? When a species possesses enough intellect and emotion, they automatically find ways to cover themselves and build an identity. The biggest difference between humans and animals is the cultural symbolism we embed into our clothing. If it were purely for survival, clothing everywhere in the world would share a single thermally optimized design. But in reality, every tribe and every region invented completely different styles, colors, and patterns. The chieftain's attire had to be distinct from the warrior's, and the shaman's robes had to carry mystical, majestic colors. Even the oldest fabric fragments ever found were already dyed using various colors extracted from nature. Clothing became a wordless language, declaring to the world the wearer's status, religion, and emotions. I wear mourning clothes to express sorrow, festival attire to share joy, and armor to be ready for battle. This journey of visual language began the exact moment a primitive human decorated their animal skin. Around 120,000 years ago, Earth entered a brutal ice age, pushing humanity to the brink of survival. Global temperatures plummeted and food sources depleted, causing the hominid population to decline severely. The human population at that time occasionally dwindled to just a few tens of thousands, teetering on the edge of total extinction. In that harsh context, clothing technology was the greatest life preserver for the survivors. Multi-layered clothes, tightly sewn at the wrists and ankles, protected the warm blood circulating inside their bodies. They survived the long winter nights, gave birth, and passed down sewing skills to subsequent generations. Thanks to the needle and thread, humans conquered the coldest regions on the world map. Stepping into the dawn of agriculture, humans created a new revolution, weaving fabric from plant fibers. Flax and cotton fibers were spun into thread and woven together on the first primitive looms. The birth of fabrics brought lightness and breathability, opening a new era for human creativity. From here, the concept of a wardrobe emerged, where clothes were categorized by season, work, and rituals. The handicraft textile industry became a powerful economic engine, driving the formation of major trade routes. The legendary Silk Road connected civilizations, altering the historical flow of numerous nations. All those magnificent achievements originated from a hairless creature capable of thinking and possessing dexterous hands. Looking back at the past, human clothing is the perfect intersection of biology, climate, and cultural needs. It began as protection, continued as self-assertion, and became a core survival tool. Today, when you stand before a mirror and choose your outfit, you are continuing a millennial-old ritual. Your choice reflects your mood, personality, and the message you want to send to the surrounding society. We are doing exactly what our ancestors on the African savanna did when donning painted animal skins. The invisible yet enduring bond over the past 170,000 years is the very act of putting on clothes every morning. Every day, we wake up, get creative, get dressed, and then complain that we have nothing to wear. An adorable habit, a humorous human paradox that seemingly remains intact after centuries of evolution. As time passed, clothing was no longer a tool to combat nature but transformed into a symbol of class. Ancient kings in Egypt or Mesopotamia used the lightest, thinnest fabrics to showcase their immense wealth. Meanwhile, slaves and laborers were only allowed to wear rough, dark-colored burlap scraps. An invisible social boundary was clearly drawn solely through the fabric material on everyone's shoulders. Any attempt to overstep class boundaries in attire during that period was met with brutally cruel punishments. This division pushed humanity's mindset about clothing to a new ladder, the burning desire to assert the ego. Humans began searching for rare colors in nature to highlight their personal status. Royal purple, extracted from a rare sea snail, became the ultimate symbol of power for Roman emperors. To obtain a single gram of that dye, tens of thousands of marine creatures were sacrificed in smoky workshops. The value of a shirt was no longer measured by its warmth, but by the number of lives and gold coins it cost. This fashion frenzy spread across continents, from eastern palaces to western fortresses. In ancient China, silk was kept as an absolute secret, a national treasure, forbidden from leaking to the outside world. Those soft, cool silk threads mesmerized the entire aristocracy from Rome to the distant Middle East. They were willing to trade equivalent weights of solid gold just to own a fragile piece of silk from the East. The flow of silk unintentionally wove historical diplomatic ties, connecting cultures that had never known each other. But behind that extravagance, the lives of the working class remained tied to rough fabrics made from hemp. They plowed fields and wove fabric under poor thatched roofs, creating magnificent products they would never touch in their lifetimes. That stark contrast was the most genuine mirror, reflecting the social structure of the ancient world. When the world entered the Middle Ages, attire was strictly bound by religious dogmas and laws. Simplicity and modesty were upheld as the ultimate moral standards that every citizen had to obey. However, the innate human desire for beauty and standing out was never entirely extinguished. They cleverly incorporated tiny embroideries and delicate folds into their dogmatic garments. And then, when the Renaissance wave struck, humanity's mindset on beauty erupted like a suppressed volcano. The human body was celebrated. Garments were tailored to accentuate the most exquisite natural curves. Designers of this era were no different from architects. They constructed immensely voluminous dress silhouettes. They used whalebone corsets and cotton padding to turn a woman's body into a moving piece of art. Men's attire also became elaborate with gold-embroidered tunics and haughty pointed shoes. Every footstep in the palace was a highly dramatic fashion show of the nobility at that time. The 18th century Industrial Revolution arrived, and once again overturned the entire order of the garment industry. Steam-powered weaving machines replaced the toil-worn hands of traditional artisans. Fabrics were mass-produced at breakneck speed, causing clothing prices to drop to unprecedented lows. For the first time in history, commoners had the opportunity to access durable, beautiful, and diverse clothes. Fashion was no longer the inviolable privilege of the ultra-rich, but belonged to the vast majority. This popularization spurred the birth of fashion trends that changed rapidly with each passing decade. The 20th century witnessed the powerful liberation of clothing, closely tied to major feminist revolutions. Bulky floor-sweeping dresses were discarded, making way for more dynamic, liberated outfits. Pants, which had been the monopoly of men for thousands of years, now became a symbol of freedom for women. Modern humans dress not just to blend into the crowd, but to separate themselves from that very majority. We have distinct fashion subcultures, from rebellious punk rock to delicately minimalist styles. Every outfit put on is a voting ballot for the lifestyle and ideology that an individual pursues. Looking back at the entire length of history, from wild animal skins to the glamorous runways of Paris or Milan, the essence of wearing clothes has not changed at all after hundreds of thousands of years of turbulent evolution. It is a reflection of fear before nature, but also an endless desire to define the ego. We cover the biological frailty of bare skin with the boundless creative power of human intellect. Every button you fasten, every ribbon you tie, carries the breath of tens of thousands of years of history. Be proud, because every morning you wake up, you are wearing the most vivid proof of human survival. We do not have the thick fur of a bear, nor the claws of a tiger, but we have intellect and threads. It is those fragile threads that have woven the entire brilliant civilization of humanity today, and the story of this second skin will continue to write new historical pages as long as humans exist. A magnificent journey began from a tiny decision by our ancestors on the distant African savanna back then. They chose not to surrender to a naked fate, and thanks to that, we have the world today. The modern era opens up a new, challenging puzzle as fast fashion begins to dominate the globe. Millions of tons of clothes are discarded every year, turning pristine lands into giant garbage dumps. The nature of fast consumption is pushing our planet into a severe ecological crisis. Our ancient ancestors wore clothes to protect themselves from nature, while today we use clothes to destroy nature. A heartbreaking paradox is taking place right inside the extravagant world of glittering runways. But amidst that crisis, a new wave of consciousness about sustainable fashion is gradually rising. People are returning to search for natural, easily biodegradable materials. They learn to recycle old clothes, transforming discarded fabrics into trendy new products. Circular fashion thinking is trying to heal the wounds caused by the Industrial Revolution. The future of clothing perhaps does not lie in far-fetched technologies, but in harmony with Mother Earth. Modern textile engineers are researching unique fibers made from mushrooms, seaweed, and fruit peels. A shirt could automatically decompose into nutrients for green plants after the user no longer needs it. That is a magical vision, where peak technology meets the original spirit of distant prehistory. We wear clothes to survive, to communicate, and now, to protect our one and only shared home. The evolution of clothing is the perfect mirror, reflecting the complete cognitive journey of all humanity. No matter the era, this second skin always contains deeply humanistic stories. When you look at the shirt you are wearing, think about its long, arduous journey of tens of thousands of years. From the wild campfire on the savannah to the modern biotechnology labs of today. The thread of history continues to be woven by our own hands and constantly innovating minds. Let every outfit you choose be a message of civilization, respecting the past and looking to the future. Because after all, the act of draping ourselves in fabric is the strongest affirmation of human status.